Taoiseach, how are you?
Good afternoon, everyone. Just to let you know, attended a informal dinner last night at the invitation of the Belgian Prime Minister. An opportunity for 12 heads of government to exchange views on the new EU budget and also institutional reforms that may need to take place as we modernise the European Union. This morning had an opportunity to attend the conference on the Sahel on a very important region of Africa and also potentially unstable one. Had a chance to speak with the President of Mali about our troop deployment there, and he was very kindly invited me to visit Mali at some stage and speak with him some more and visit our troops there as well. And I renewed Ireland's commitment to assisting that region to bring about political stability and security as well. Going in now to an informal meeting of the EU 27, mainly focused on the reform of the EU going forward and also the new EU budget. And there does seem to be a lot of support for Ireland's position in relation to the new EU budget, that we should protect and reform programmes that work well, like the Common Agricultural Policy, like cohesion and structural funds, and that if Europe is going to do new things, and we should do new things, particularly around migration and security and other matters, that we should try to find new sources of money to do that.
It was an interesting looking dinner last night in Varadkar. Did you get much readback from that British Cabinet away day yesterday on their Brexit policy and their plans?
Got various reports. I have to say that they're mixed reports, so what I want to do now is wait for the Prime Minister to make her speech next week. Looking forward to hearing what she has to say and hoping that there'll be something new and a lot more detail.
In terms of our own concerns about getting the language agreed in December written into a legally binding form, are you concerned in any way that it may be somehow downgraded as it appears in the final agreement?
Well, the position of the Irish government, which is the position of the European Union, is that we want the commitments and guarantees that we were given in December written into the withdrawal agreement. It doesn't really matter whether it's in the body of the agreement or a protocol to the agreement, so long as it's legally binding, we'll be satisfied. But that's not agreed yet, either by the Commission or by the UK, but that's what we're working towards.
Were you aware last December, Taoiseach, that when you announced that backstop, that it would be contained in a separate protocol as opposed to in the main body of the withdrawal agreement? Were you aware last December or even last week when you discussed it in the Dáil?
Last December what we had was a joint report, and it's impossible to predict the future. When it comes to Brexit, I guarantee you the situation is changing very much. So it was always my view, though, that what was agreed in the joint report in December should be in the withdrawal agreement, and that should be legally binding, whether it's in the agreement itself or a protocol is of no consequence so long as it's legally binding. So that wasn't discussed at the time at all.
When did you become aware of the protocol?
In Britain they're talking about managed divergence. Does that sound on services? Does that sound like some sort of customs union to you? And second of all, are you worried about a backlash next week when the text does come out? Because it appears in the UK, there's not really a full agreement that what was agreed in December is something that they really are supporting, particularly in the hardline Brexiteers.
Well, I think it would be unhelpful for me and impossible for me to interpret what the United Kingdom government means. I think it's important that they do that for themselves, and I'm looking forward to hearing the Prime Minister's speech next week, and I really hope that we're going to hear something new and a lot more detail. I really think we need at this stage real detail as to what the United Kingdom's position is, what new relationship they want the United Kingdom to have with the European Union, and have that spelled out in detail, not in aspiration.
How concerned are you on attacks about the attacks on the Good Friday Agreement from within the Conservative Party?
Well, I'm very much reassured by what Prime Minister May has said and what Secretary of State Karen Bradley has said, and they've said that they stand by the Good Friday Agreement and that their support for it is steadfast. And when I want to know what the United Kingdom government thinks, even when there are a lot of mixed messages, I listen to the Prime Minister. And when I want to know what the United Kingdom government thinks about Northern Ireland, I listen to the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. And I'm very happy with what was said in the House of Commons, that they're steadfast behind the Good Friday Agreement. I know that some of the more radical Brexiteers who are not members of the British government have been questioning the Good Friday Agreement in recent months. And I suppose what I'd say to them is they always say to us that we should respect their vote, the 52-48 vote in the United Kingdom to leave the European Union, and we do respect that vote. I would say to anyone who questions the Good Friday Agreement, respect our vote. 94% for the Good Friday Agreement in Ireland and 71% in Northern Ireland.
Taoiseach, just to go back to Peter's question about the protocol, when were you made aware that the December wording may be included in the protocol as opposed to the full withdrawal agreement?
I suppose last week, but like I say, it's not something that's of any consequence or of any concern. I can understand for political reasons people may wish to try and make an issue of it in some way, but my only concern is that what was agreed, the guarantees that we were given in December, are made legally binding, and that can be done in a protocol to the withdrawal agreement. Let's not forget, for example, the Kyoto Protocol is a protocol, a legally binding treaty on climate change. Protocols are legally binding.
Sure.
Just in relation to a domestic issue and your colleague Catherine Noon and the investigation into bullying, can you just update us on that, please?
Yes, there is a dispute between two senators. Senator Noon has made a complaint against another senator in terms of the way he has spoken to her, and that complaint is being taken very seriously. It will be investigated by the party, and that will be done swiftly, and any necessary action will be taken on foot of that.
On today's matter, budget issues, Taoiseach, the Commission was saying if there wasn't agreement on enlarging the budget, they'd have to cut the Common Agricultural Policy because it's just too big to not cut. One of the areas that has also been suggested for raising funds is the Common Consolidated Corporate Tax Base. If that comes in, allocate some monies from that. What's your view on that CCCTB plan?
No, our position on the CCTB is that we don't favour it. We believe that tax sovereignty is important, that national governments should set their own taxes, and that money should be determined by national parliaments and spent on national budgets. And the system that we have in the European Union is that we raise money essentially from two sources, customs duties and also from a direct contribution made by EU member states based on their GNI, based on the size of their economy. And we think that approach makes sense, and we propose to continue that.
So how do you see filling in the hole that will be left after the British go? There's 10 billion a year plus the extra money that's needed for the extra things like migration.
Yeah, well, there are a number of options. You know, I do think that there are some inefficiencies in the way the European Union spends its budget, so there's always room for savings and efficiencies. And also, as I said when I spoke to the European Parliament in January, that the Irish government is willing to contemplate an increase in our contributions over the next 5 years, provided, of course, other countries do also, and provided that we protect well-functioning programmes like the Common Agricultural Policy, like Erasmus, like Horizon 2020, like regional development, and also, of course, the CAP.
Are you concerned, Taoiseach, that Ireland could be forced to weaken its position on CCCTB in return for continued support of our Brexit position?
No, nobody's tried that yet anyway.
Taoiseach, just on...
Don't think they will either.
Taoiseach, you'll be aware that President Michael D. Higgins made some comments in Greece yesterday about his own future. He seemed to indicate, though he hasn't fully said yet, that he's had a change of mind on serving one term, that he's now looking to serve a second term and possibly may announce in July. Does that change Fine Gael's thinking on the matter? Do you expect Fine Gael to run a candidate at this point in the presidential elections?
Well, I want to say I think that President Higgins has been an excellent president for Ireland, has just come back from a very successful trip to Greece, and he now has plans for a trip to the Baltic states, which I think is going to be very welcome and very much part of our efforts to build alliances with other countries within the European Union post-Brexit. So I think he's done a really excellent job. Fine Gael will make a decision after we know his intentions for sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Will you speak to Theresa May next in relation to what the British government has sort of agreed to in terms of their position in the future relationship? Will you only hear when she makes her speech, or will you chat to her over the next couple of days?
Yeah, I don't know yet. We spoke we spoke on the phone and have met in person in the last 10 days. I imagine we'll speak again. We don't have a meeting or phone call scheduled, but based on previous speeches that she's made, if she's going to say something significant about Ireland, she would usually let me know in advance. If not, then we may speak afterwards. But there's an open line of communication there, and we're in contact very regularly. So, but we've no particular plans at the moment for a phone call or a meeting.
Brexit is nearly a year away. What's going to be the hardest thing to fix in the next year?
Well, I think it depends on what Brexit means, and it's still unclear to us as to exactly what the United Kingdom wants in terms of a new relationship between the United Kingdom and the EU. We want that relationship to be very close. We want it to be much as it is now, and the United Kingdom can have as close a relationship with the European Union as it wants, but it's not an a la carte. It's not possible to be aligned with the European Union when it suits and not when it doesn't. That's not possible. So I think the United Kingdom really needs to square that circle, and it doesn't appear to me that that circle has yet been squared, but hopefully when the Prime Minister speaks next week, the United Kingdom will be more clear about what it wants in terms of a new relationship, and will back that up with real detail that can be written into a legal treaty with the European Union. I think we're well beyond the point of aspirations and principles. We need detail now. Anyway,
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Next,